بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. So inshallah we will moving on to the Ismul Fa'il in this lesson. So we finished here, and now we are here. Okay, so الفصل السابع في اسم الفاعل. فصل اسم الفاعل اسم مشتق. So the Ismul Fa'il is a noun. First of all, it's mushtaq. It is derived from the masdar. It's interesting right here, mushtaqun min fa'lin. And then in the masdar, he wrote it derived from the masdar. Interesting. Mushtaqun min fa'l is derived from a fa'l. Maybe he's trying to keep alliances to all parties. It is derived from a fa'l. ليدل, to show, to imply, to denote. على من قام به الفعل. To show with whom the verb stands, who the verb stands with or exists with, meaning the person who's carrying out the action. بمعنى الحدوث, in a huduth aspect. So for example, if I say ضارب تال مستخرج, all of these forms, these sighas, they show the person who is doing the action but in a huduth form. Why do you say huduth? Opposite is mutafdhil, because for example al-a'lam, al-adrab, for example, these also show a person who has the quality of darb within them, but ala thubut, in the thubut aspect. You can't be a'lam and then have that for one short space of time. So the huduth is mentioned to show who is carrying out the action, but in a huduth way, meaning temporary state, as opposed to the ismu tafdhil, which has in a thubut. So the person who is carrying out the action, who possesses the action, with whom the action is connected to in a short-term space. And we all know that ismu taf'il, we've done it before. وصيغته, we've already done this in sarf. وصيغته من المجرد الثلاثي على وزن فاعل. And its sigha from mujarrad thulasi is in a pattern of fa'il, نحو ضارب وناصر. ومن غيره, from non-thulathi, it comes in a pattern of the mudari'. من ذلك الفعل بميم مضمومة مكان حرف المضارعة وكسر ما قبل الآخر كمدخل ومستخرج. So مدخل, it's very simple, then it starts already. You have a يدخل. So if it's bab if'al, يدخل, the ismul fa'il is the same as the mudari', and all you do is you replace the alamatun mudari' with a mim madhmoom, and you make sure that ma qabla akhirihi is maqsoor. Mustakhrijin is made from yastakhriju, so you change the ya into a mim madhmoom, and you make sure that the second last letter has a kasra. Mustakhrijin, mutakallimin, etc., etc. Yes? So yatakallamu, so yatakallamu, yatakallamu. So here you make the ya into a mim madhmoom, and you say lam, and you make it into a kasra, mutakallimin. Okay? Yes, very simple. Now here's where the main discussion starts. Amaluhu. What amal, meaning what governance, and how does it do amal and affect the i'rab of the words after it? وهو يعمل أمل فعله المعروف. Huwa, the ismul fa'il, it behaves and it governs other words just like the fa'il ma'roof. And I said to you, I've mentioned before, that there are two words. You have al-fa'lul ma'loom fa'iluhu. So some books have mentioned it called al-fa'lul ma'loom, that fa'il whose fa'il is known. And some books have mentioned al-fa'lul ma'roof. Okay? In most books of sarf, most of them have fa'il ma'loom fa'iluhu. Which one had it? Maqsood. Was it Maqsood? I think al-Maqsood has al-Ma'roof. But most of the other books of sarf, they use fa'il ma'loom. Most of the subcontinental books, I think, they use Ma'roof. Ibn Hisham, etc. use fa'il mabniyu lil fa'il, ma'loom fa'iluhu. And it makes no difference. It's just a different term for the same thing. So, because the fa'il is made from the fa'il ma'loom, it is the same, it governs the same way as the fa'il ma'loom. Now, this needs a bit of explanation here. When you have an ismul fa'il, okay, there are certain ways it can govern. Only certain conditions, certain scenarios, certain situations in which this verb can govern. Let's get this last one out of the way. What is it? If the ismul fa'il has an alif lam, what kind of alif lam? Mawsula, in the meaning of alladhi. For example, innal musaddiqeen wal musaddiqat al-muqimi as-salah al-muqimun as-salata or ataliyati dhikra. If it has an alif lam in the meaning of alladhi, there's no conditions. First rule, if you have an alif lam and the alif lam is in the meaning of alladhi, the ismul fa'il after it will do amal mutlaqan. It will have you can make the maf'ul bihi mansoob. Correct? Everybody got that? Yes, so far following? Okay, now from here you have to look at it carefully now. If it doesn't have alif lam, it's not mentioned in the book, but from other books we put it all together, this is how it looks. When ismul fa'il does not have alif lam, it does amal on three different things. One is amal on the fa'il, one on the maf'ul bihi sarih, and the third is ghayrul maf'ul bihi sarih. So for example, it will make the fa'il marfu'. Okay? Now when it makes the fa'il marfu', the fa'il of the ismul fa'il can come in one of two forms, as a zamir mustatir or as an ismun zahir. If it comes as a zamir mustatir, there's no conditions. Every single ismul fa'il, when its fa'il is a zamir mustatir, there's no fa'il after it, then the fa'il will be inside hidden marfu'. So for example, if you look in the Quran, huwa qa'imun. Yes? It has no alif lam and there is no fa'il after it. وَهُوَ قَائِمٌ يُصَلِّي فِي الْمِحْرَابِ. There's no fa'il after it. The fa'il is zamir mustatir. So then we would say there's no condition. It always gives the ismul fa'il always, if the zamir is a mustatir, it will always make the zamir mustatir marfu inside of it. You got that first part? Yes? Yeah? Now the next two have the same conditions. If the ismul fa'il is to have its own fa'il as an ismul zahir, or if the fa'il is to have a maf'ul bihi sarih, meaning as a mansoob, yes? Then there are two conditions. Condition number one, it either has to have the present tense or future tense meaning, number one, or number two, it has to have i'timad. What does i'timad mean? Next slide, later on. Two conditions. Whether it makes marfu to ismul zahir, or if it makes mansoob to the maf'ul bihi sarih, then in this it has condition, shart. It must be in the meaning of hal and mustaqbil number one, and it must have i'timad. And if you have maf'ul other than maf'ul bihi sarih, whether you have maf'ul lahu, maf'ul mutlaq, or you have the ghayr sarih maf'ul bihi, then there's no conditions, it is amal. So the only issue where you have to put conditions is when there's no alif lam and is giving the fa'il zahir a rafa, or is giving a maf'ul bihi sari in nasab. In those two conditions, those two scenarios, you must have either hal and istiqbal and have i'timad. Only then can it do amal. So if you recap again, the ismul fa'il, you see ismul fa'il. If it's alif lam, close your eyes and you know it's going to do amal. It can do amal. Whether it has a fa'il after it, ismul zahir or mansoob, maf'ul bihi, it doesn't matter, but it can do amal. So once it has an alif lam, it can do amal. If it doesn't have an alif lam, then you have to look, is it giving amal to an ismul zahir or a maf'ulun bihi? If it is, it has conditions of i'timad and hal and mustaqbil. And if it's fa'il is zamir mustatir or is maf'ul other than maf'ul bihi sarih, then there's no condition, it can do amal mutlaqan. Okay? Now let's apply that to some examples. Okay? So, وَهُوَ يَعْمَلُ أَمَلَ فَعْلِهِ الْمَعْرُوف. But it's not mentioned in the book, but it really means what? أَمَلَ فَعْلِهِ. And it means the nasab. Because when it gives nasab or fa'il zahir. These conditions in kana. These conditions is only when the ismul fa'il is giving rafa to an ismul zahir, or when it is giving nasab to a maf'ul bihi sarih. There are two conditions. It has to be the meaning of hal or istiqbal. And number two, it has to be mu'tamid. What does mu'tamid mean? It comes after. Meaning, it comes after one of these. For example, al-mubtada. So basically it becomes a khabar. So it is leaning, it is dependent upon the mubtada. So here, we have let's analyze this. We have an ismul fa'il. Does it have alif lam? No, it doesn't have alif lam, so we have to check. Is giving a rafa to the word after it. So now the condition is, it has to be the meaning of hal, and it has to be i'timad upon the mubtada. So it comes after a mubtada, or mafi hukm in mubtada. If it's like a nawasik, it comes before it. Inna or kana, it doesn't make a difference. So it has a mubtada before it, and it's a meaning of present tense. Zayd, his father, is standing. This can do amal. Okay, for example here, look. وَكَلْبُهُمْ بَاسِطٌ ذِرَاعَيْهِ بِالْوَصِيدِ. Okay? وَكَلْبُهُمْ أَصْحَابُ الْكَهْفِ. And their dog was بَاسِطٌ ذِرَاعَيْهِ بِالْوَصِيدِ. And the dog is spreading his forearms on the door of the cave. So now what do we have here? We have an ismul fa'il. It doesn't have alif lam, so two conditions. It must have i'timad on the mubtada. It must come after the mubtada, i'timad. And it must be the meaning of the hal, present tense. Understood? Go ahead, ask the question that's coming to your mind. What's the question? This is not present tense. This is not a past tense. Is it not a past tense event? That the dog of the Ashabul Kahf, it's no longer there. It was there at a particular time. So how can this be present tense or future tense? Do you understand the question? So it means this is present tense in terms of, it's called hikayatul hal. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is narrating it as if though it's happening right now. The way it is narrated is called hikayatul hal. It's like when you give a lecture or a speech, and then he's entering the room and he turns right, and he's turning right. So you're narrating a past event using present tense words. So the hal and istiqbal, even if you hikayatul hal, you narrate a past tense event using present tense form, present tense structure, you're allowed to do this. And Kisa'i is gone against them and say no. But anyway, that's what the reason for this is. Yes? So وَكَلْبُهُمْ بَاسِطٌ ذِرَاعَيْهِ. And this is giving amal to the maf'ulun bihi sarih. The ma'mul is a maf'ulun bihi sarih. And its dog is spreading its dhira on the door of the cave. Or it has i'timad on the dhul hal, meaning it becomes the hal, and then the hal has its own fa'il. For example, ja'ani zaydun dariban. Zayd came to me hitting. Okay? Well, it's not hitting, but dariban becomes the hal, so it has i'timad, it comes after the dhul hal. Yes? So it's fa'il and it's maf'ul bihi al-zahir. So now this can do amal because the meaning of the present tense and it has i'timad. An example of this is the Quran verse, فَعْبُدِ اللَّهَ مُخْلِصًا لَهُ الدِّينِ. This ismul fa'il is in the meaning of hal, and it is doing i'timad on the dhul hal of the huwa, the anta. You worship Allah mukhlisan lahu ad-din, making the deen and the religion sincere for Him. Yes? Yes? And deen becomes the maf'ul bihi sarih. This becomes the maf'ul bihi sarih. Understood? Okay. Now this lahu is a maf'ul li ajlihi ghayr sarih, but it doesn't need the conditions because it's not a maf'ul bihi sarih. So it becomes the ma'mul of the mukhlisan. The conditions are met, but they're not necessary. Are you following? Understanding? Any questions? No? Yes? The next example is if you have a hamzul istifham, same condition. So it's a hal and it has a hamzul istifham before it. No mubtada before it, no dhul hal before it. It's also permissible. قائم زيد. An example of this is what? أراغب أنت عن آلهتي يا إبراهيم. So you have here اسم الفاعل in the meaning of the present, and it comes after a istifham. So the anta, you can have this ism al-fa'il as a zahir, as a ism al-zahir. A harf al-nafi, where we have a negative particle, ma qa'imun zaydun. So qa'imun is the ism al-fa'il. It comes after a harf al-nafi. This can also make the ism al-zahir marfu'. Okay, and there's no Quranic example of this I could come across. I don't think there's any of them. Okay? So in these conditions, the ism al-fa'il can do amal and ism al-fa'il can govern. Okay? Yes? There are two conditions, but the i'timad comes in 5 ways. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I don't know why he's not mentioning it here. There's also another way. If it's what? It's i'timad al-mawsuf or man'ut. So the two conditions, one is the zaman, the tense, and one is the i'timad. And i'timad can be on 5 things: the mubtada, the dhil hal, the hamzul istifham, and the harf al-nahi. Or it can be on a mawsuf or a na. For example, أخرجنا من هذه القرية الظالم أهلها. So if the ism al-fa'il, so you have here القرية الظالم أهلها. So in here, this is al-zalim is a na'at of qarya. So it's i'timad upon the na'at, man'ut, sorry. So and it can, so therefore it can give is ism al-zahir what? Rafa. And if we have, for example, qaryatun qaryatun, if you have qaryatun zalimatun, if you have qaryatun zalimatun, then in here there is no ism, the here will be inside. It'll give rafa to the zamir mustatir without any condition. Yes? Are you following? Okay?
If you missed your height, what do you have to do? There is a big difference between translation and see it. So as we progress to learning Arabic,
ما لهم من مكرم ما له من مكرم. But there's no fa'il of the mukrim. The mukrim has no fa'il there. It has a zamir mustatir. So if you say, for example, ما له من مكرم, so you mean ما له مكرم. So this has, and this is not in a verbal meaning. This is a noun meaning. It doesn't have the hal and istikmal meaning. That he will know. It means there's no one to honor him. So this is like a ismul fa'il in a noun meaning, not in a verbal meaning. As opposed to this, you are turning away. Not you are turn away from us. This is a verbal meaning. Do you understand? So when you have the ismul fa'il and maf'ul, as mentioned in the previous lessons, if it's in a noun meaning, it wouldn't have the fa'il, it wouldn't have a fa'il after it. Like tajir, that wouldn't have a huwa inside. The ismiya, it becomes ghalib over the wasfiya. So in here the ismiya is ghalib. Yes. Okay. Yeah, it is the same wazn, but in here the wasfiya and the verbal element is ghalib, is remains. And in here the ismiya is not becoming like a noun. Okay? Is that clear? Yeah. Another question? Not if it's nakira, if there is no file after it. If there's no file after it, we would say, well, you don't have the conditions, automatically the zamir marfu muttasil is without any conditions, it is amal on that. The conditions are only for the maf'ul bihi sarih and for the fa'il which is not muttasil, mustatir. Okay? Yes? فَإِنْ كَانَ بِمَعْنَ الْمَاضِي. If it's not in the hala mustaqbil meaning, then meaning it doesn't have the verbal meaning to it. You see, if it has a madhi meaning, yes, i.e. the noun meaning is somebody has done something, then you have to do idafa. You can't make it, it doesn't do amal. And it has idafa ma'nawiyya, not lafziyya. So basically the noun meaning has become prevalent. So for example, Zaydun daribu amrin amsi. This here, so he's saying here, for example, if you have amsi, now you have to say daribu amrin. You can't say daribun amran amsi. Okay? But more than this, not only bima'na al-madi, if it's bima'na al-noun, meaning it has the ismiya is ghalib. So for example, you have like a tajir, a muallim, mudarris, khatib, al-mukhatib, al-ghaib. Now those don't have verbal meaning, so those wouldn't have amal. Okay? Yes? So for example, you have here, huwa ba'i'u tamarin. So if you have here, huwa ba'i'u tamarin. If you mean this as his profession, he is a date seller, a date merchant, then this is not going to be ba'i'un tamaran. So there's a difference between ana ba'i'u tamarin, ba'i'u tamarin, or ana ba'i'un tamaran. What does the first one mean? Ana ba'i'u tamarin. Tamarin. So tamarin. I am a date seller. The second one, ana ba'i'un tamaran. It's tamar. I am buying, I am going to buy. This has a verbal meaning. That's why it is amal. Okay? And this is a noun meaning. It can't do amal because it's not in the meaning of hal al-mustaqbil. So the same word, depending on the way it's used, you can have a different amal, different governance for it. Does that make sense?
It's not necessarily that.
Yes? Okay. هذا إذا كان منكرا. When it's nakira. Number 2, no alif lam. Okay. أما إذا كان معرفا. He put mu'arraf, but he should put here, has alif lam in the meaning of alladhi. Not just any alif lam, but alif lam in the meaning of alladhi. Then, it doesn't matter if it's present, past, future. It just gives amal. For example, ad-daribu abuhu amranil an. So, Zayd, his father is hitting Amr now or tomorrow or the day after. In all conditions, they will do amal. So, for example, if you have alladhi, you have like, for example, if you say, رأيت القاتل أخاك. I saw the one who killed your brother. Let's stop violence. رأيت الناصر أخاك. Okay? So in this example here, رأيت الناصر أخاك أمسي. So what's happening here? In here, الناصر اسم الفاعل, but it's in which meaning? The ماضي. It's not حال مستقبل, but because there's an alif lam, and the alif lam in the meaning of الذي. This means here, رأيت الذي نصر أخاك أمسي. So in here, it can do amal. You understand? Understood? Has everybody understood? Yes? You're breaking up a bit. I didn't hear you. From the context. It could be in theory. The question is, why can an-nasir akhaka not be mubdal minhu badal? It could be in theory. But you'll know from the context, the whole paragraph, that it's not. Good question, interesting question. Okay? So for example, فَالتَّالِيَاتِ ذِكْرًا. التاليات أي اللاتي اللواتي يتلون ذكرًا. So alif lam here, meaning of الذي or التي, etc. So then you just amal mutlaqan. Whether the condition met, it may have been met, but that's not the point. الذي comes والمرسلات عرفا. And then all of those, they have alif lam, ism al-fa'il, wal-adiyati dabaha, fal-muriyati qadaha. Alif lam, it is amal, mutlaqan. Understood? Yes? We stop here today, inshallah. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.